But thirdly, here's a third G. God uses painful problems, and you need to get back to James 1. He uses painful problems and trials, number one, to goad us or push us. Number two, to guide us or navigate us. But number three, he uses it to gauge us or to measure where we are. Now, this is really important. In other words, God uses pain as a measuring tool. He uses painful problems and trials to make us see what we're like, listen, on the inside, what we're really like. For instance, when I experience pain, the way I react will measure my faith. My commitment can be measured by how I react to pain. My maturity level can be measured by how I react to pain. My patience can be measured by how I react to pain. It's a great way to see what's inside. You know, I've said this before, but we're all like tea bags. We kind of are inside that little white bag. You can't tell quite what's in there until you start dunking it up and down in the hot water. And the more you go up and down, the more what's inside starts seeping out. And when people start going through the hot water of life and facing the tests of pain, what's inside starts filtering out. You know, the Scriptures say that pain is a refining fire. That's what 1 Peter is all about. And God wants us to see the impurities of our lives refined. He wants the dross and the chaff to be removed. Here's the key. When emotional or physical pain hit this week, what did you let God refine in your life? Did you go through it and say, God, is there something you want to refine in me? Is there something you want me to be more purely in the image of Christ? Or did you just pop a painkiller to get rid of it? If you let it, pain will burn off selfishness. It just makes you a whole lot more unselfish. And if you let it, it will burn off materialism. The grip of having to have things really doesn't matter when you're in pain. It's a great refiner of ego and pride. Pain will often pop the ego balloon just like that. It will burn off impatience. So many things will happen when we let God refine us. Here's another verse I want to read to you from Isaiah. Don't get lost from James, because we're coming back to it. But Isaiah 48 and verse 10 says this: I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. New International. Tested you in the furnace. That was God speaking. When pain hits each time, it's a test. Why? Because we can't keep up our image when we're in pain. You know, in everyday life, we have our schedule right, we have our hair right, we have the outfit on. Some people have learned how to walk just special, you know, so they show real confidence, and they've learned how to talk, and they've taken all these courses. Just give them flu for 3 days. Right? They're disheveled. Hair's no longer, you know, just right. Clothes don't matter anymore. They just don't have that image. That's reality. God says, when your image is gone, it's just your character that's left. And that's when He wants to work in our lives, because character matters so much more than appearance. And we spend so much time on what we look like and so little time on developing the character. And when the character builders come, we try and kill them. We try and run away from them. We try and avoid them. But pain will test our character. You see, you can only say one thing in your image. But when pain comes, you have to say what you're really like, what you really are. I want to read from Eugene Peterson. You look at James 1, verses 2 and 3, and there are a lot of new so-called translations. They're really not translations. They're actually like sermons. And Eugene Peterson has written probably the most well-known and widespread. It's called The Message. And it's kind of like the Living Bible. It's kind of like a sermon on the Bible. It doesn't really adhere word for word to the original language, but it's very powerful. And I want to read to you what Peterson says on James verses 2 and 3. Follow along. It says, "Consider it all joy, my brethren," and here's what he says, "when tests and challenges come at you from every side, and you know you're under pressure, and your faith life is forced out into the open and shows its true colors." Now, isn't that good? I mean, he really caught it there. And he said this: pain puts the squeeze on us and lets out what's really inside. And the classic example of that is the Exodus for the children of Israel. Did you know that getting from Egypt to Canaan is just a 2-week walk? I mean, well, all of us probably, even, you know, overweight and unexercised Americans could do a 2-week walk if we had to. And so they could have just walked out of Goshen and got to Canaan 2 weeks. And God turned a 2-week walk into a 40-year test. Why? God wanted to show them what was inside their hearts. He was goading them. He was pushing them. He was guiding them. And He was gauging or measuring them. In fact, the testimony of God is in Deuteronomy 8:2. And this is what it says. God led you through the wilderness for 40 years, humbling you, testing you to find out how you would respond and whether or not you would really obey Him. 40-year measuring of their lives. Now, God planned that. How about it? Are you in the wilderness this week? In the wilderness or the desert times of our life, things start drying up. Have your finances been drying up? You're looking at the balance and it's going just like this. I have a neighbor who is a real high-paid executive. There are only a few jobs he can have. And he just built this massive house next to me. I mean, it's big. White carpet. Beautiful stuff. He's a nice fellow. He lost his job. And the finance, I see him out there. I know things are getting tough because you'll see him at noon in his bathrobe just standing on the sidewalk watching the sprinklers. He's struggling. And I go out, I run out next to him in his bathrobe and I talk to him. And I come home at lunch or whatever and see him out there. And he says, you know what? The finances are drying up. That's a test. That's a test. Maybe your relationships are drying up. You know, you thought one was going somewhere and it's not. Maybe your health is withering. Maybe your ministry opportunities are drying up and God says, I'm just testing you. You're in the wilderness. I'm gauging you so you'll know what's inside of you. And when you go through those tough times and when you say, I don't have any feelings, I don't feel anything, I feel apathetic, you're in the wilderness and God's gauging you, guiding you, goading you. Or maybe, fourthly, He might be guarding or protecting us, because that's the fourth reason.